The Watchtower, January 2016. They offered themselves willingly in Oceania. Renee, a sister in her mid-30s, grew up in a family of zealous witnesses in Australia. We moved many times to help in areas where there was a greater need for kingdom preachers, she says. Dad and Mum made things interesting, exciting and fun. When I had 2 children of my own, I wanted them to have that same kind of life. Renee's husband, Shane, a brother in his late 30s, had similar spiritual goals. He explains, "After the birth of our second child, we read in the Watchtower about a family of witnesses who had gone to the southwestern Pacific in their yacht to preach in the islands of Tonga. That article prompted us to write to the Australia and New Zealand branch offices of Jehovah's Witnesses to ask where there was a greater need for kingdom preachers. In response, we were invited to move to Tonga, the very place we had read about." The footnote reads, "In 2012, the Australia and New Zealand branch offices were consolidated to form the Australasia branch." End of footnote. After Shane, Renee and their children, Jacob and Sky, had lived in Tonga for about a year, a succession of riots forced them to return to Australia, but they kept in mind their goal of expanding their ministry. In 2011, they moved to Norfolk Island, a tiny Pacific island about 900 miles or 1,500 kilometres east of Australia. How did that move turn out? Today, 14-year-old Jacob says, "Jehovah not only looked after us, but he also made the ministry fun." Reaching out to serve as a family. Like Shane, Renee and their children, many other witness families have offered themselves willingly to serve as need graders. What motivated them to move? Burnett and Simone, a couple in their mid-30s, and their sons, Easton and Caleb, now ages 12 and 9, moved to Burketown, an isolated town in Queensland, Australia. Witnesses had preached there only every 3 or 4 years, explains Burnett. Many people were interested in the good news. We wanted to give them the opportunity to have a regular personal Bible study. Mark and Karen, now in their early 50s, served in several congregations near Sydney, Australia, before they and their 3 children, Jessica, Jim and Jack, moved to Nhulunbuy, a remote mining community in the Northern Territory. Says Mark, "I love people, so I wanted to be where there was lots to do in the congregation and in the ministry." Karen, however, was hesitant about moving. "But after Mark and others encouraged me," she says, "I was willing to give it a try. Now I am glad that I did." In 2011, Benjamin and Carolyn and their 2 preschool daughters, Jade and Bria, moved from Queensland, Australia back to Timor-Leste, a small country on Timor Island in the Indonesian archipelago. Carolyn and I had previously served in Timor-Leste as special pioneers, says Ben. The witnessing was awesome, and the brothers were very supportive. It broke our hearts to leave. We were determined to return. When our children came along, we postponed our plans, but did not change them. Carolyn adds, "We wanted our children to be surrounded by missionaries, Bethelites, and special pioneers, and to receive the best possible spiritual experience." Preparing to move. Jesus told his followers, "Who of you wanting to build a tower does not first sit down and calculate the expense?" Luke 14:28. Likewise, when a family contemplates moving to another area, good planning is vital. What needs might be considered? Spiritual. "We wanted to serve others and not be a burden," says Ben. "So before we moved, we made sure to build up ourselves spiritually. We also increased our share in the ministry and in other congregation activities." Jacob, mentioned earlier, relates, "Before moving to Norfolk Island, we read lots of life stories in the Watchtower and Awake about families who served where the need was greater. We talked about the challenges they faced and how Jehovah cared for them." His sister, 11-year-old Sky, adds, "I said lots of prayers on my own and with Mum and Dad. Emotional. Renee relates, "Because we lived near family and close friends in an area I loved, it would have been easy to stay there. But rather than dwell on what I was giving up, I thought about how the move would benefit our family." Cultural. Many families do research to prepare themselves for their new surroundings. "We read as much about Nhulunbuy as we could," says Mark. "Brothers living there kindly sent copies of the town newspaper, which gave us some insight into the local people and their culture." Shane, who moved to Norfolk Island, adds, "Most of all, I focused on displaying Christian qualities. I knew that if I was sincere, mild, honest, and hard-working, I could fit in anywhere in the world." Dealing with challenges. Successful need graders highlight the importance of being flexible and positive when facing unexpected challenges. Consider some examples. Renee relates, "I learned to embrace different ways of doing things. For example, when seas are rough at Norfolk Island, supply ships cannot berth and groceries can become scarce and expensive. So when preparing meals, I have learned to be resourceful." Her husband, Shane, adds, "We also adjust our spending to stay within our weekly budget." Their son Jacob highlights a different challenge. "Our new congregation had only 7 other members, all adults, so I had no friends my age. But when I worked with the older ones in the ministry, we soon became friends." Jim, now aged 21, faced a similar situation. The closest neighbouring congregation to Nhulunbuy is over 450 miles or 725 kilometres away, so we make the most of assemblies and conventions. We arrive early and savour our association with the brothers and sisters. We view these occasions as the highlights of our year. So glad we came here. The Bible states, "It is the blessing of Jehovah that makes one rich." Proverbs 10:22. Around the world, countless need graders have personally experienced the truth of that inspired statement. "The greatest blessing has been the effect that our move has had on our children," says Mark. "The older ones have absolute confidence that Jehovah will care for those who put kingdom interests first. You cannot buy that confidence." Shane says, "I am so much closer to my wife and children. When I hear them relate what Jehovah has done for them, I feel truly satisfied." His son Jacob agrees. "I have had such a great time. I am so glad we came here." The following is supplementary information. Training, a precious gift. If you are a foreigner in the country where you serve, develop appreciation for the local people and their culture and be willing to adapt yourself so as to win their love and respect. Elders who are need graders are able to offer a precious gift to the congregation where they serve, the gift of training others. When such elders help the local brothers to become spiritual shepherds, the entire congregation will continue to benefit from the work of need graders even after they move away to another congregation. If you are an elder in that situation, here are a few suggestions you may want to use in training others. What to do.
Give people tasks that are within their capabilities. Show them what to do and express confidence in their ability to succeed. Mark.
I eventually translated some instructions into the local language. This made a marked difference because it helped the brothers to understand their roles clearly. Benjamin.
If you focus on the good in individuals and in the congregation, you and those around you will be happier. Burnett.
What to avoid.
Do not micromanage others. Nothing makes a person feel like giving up faster than having someone looking over his shoulder, criticizing what he does. Also, do not compare your current congregation with the former one. Repeatedly telling others, "In my last congregation," is usually not well received. Mark.
Avoid drawing attention to yourself, as if you have more insight or a better way of doing things than the local brothers. Instead, Refer to God's Word and the written direction from His organisation. This promotes unity and helps all to see that we are being trained by Jehovah. Shane.
End of article. The Watchtower